Welcome to NightCap Live. I'm Dan Dunn. And on behalf of Flaviar, thank you for joining us for this interactive masterclass. Over the next glorious hour, we're going to be fully immersed in Scotch. I mean, we are just going to dive right into the stuff. So hopefully you've dressed accordingly. Joining us on the program today are whiskey experts Holly Seidewand and Gabe Cardarella. We'll be grabbing us by our noses and palates and leading us gently on a journey across three fabulous scotches. And they are Royal Brackla, right there. Aberfeldy 12, right there. And Dewar's 15, right there. I hope you have some because you're not having any of mine. Also on the show today, one of the funniest people in America, says a lot of people, one of the funniest people in America, comedian Joe DeRosa. It's going to be coming up in just a few minutes. Very excited to talk to Joe. I hope you're all hanging in there, doing as well as you can during this extremely challenging period of time we're all living through. It's taken some getting used to, being trapped inside most of the time. Personally, I think the key is to just try and stay busy. Do things. Be constructive. For instance, I spent most of the afternoon building this awesome new bar you see behind me here. I modeled it after the bar from the Overlook Hotel, which of course was featured in the heartwarming film, The Shining. By the way, I rewatched The Shining the other night. Boy, does that film hit way too close to home right now. I would avoid that one and also stay away from Contagion, which I also watched. I should mention, though, that the guy who directed Contagion, one Mr. Steven Soderbergh, will be joining me right here on Tuesday, May 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Flaviar's YouTube channel. So check out that, me and Soderbergh. I would be remiss, says my network, if I didn't invite you to check out my podcast. It's called What We're Drinking with Dan Dunn. We've had some great guests on there. Kurt Russell, Tiffany Thiessen, Matthew McConaughey, Florida Georgia Line. Mr. Joe DeRosa has been on that show as well. It's a hoot, I swear, and it's available everywhere podcasts stream. As always, we would love to hear from you here on NightCap Live. So if a thought pops into your head, any thought, even if you're worried it might be stupid or irrelevant or obtuse or completely unintelligible, just go ahead and share it with us anyway. Because isn't that the way the world works these days? Just go to the comments box. It's down there. And just just type in whatever things in your head. Same goes for questions. If you have a question, fire it off, and we'll try and answer them because we are here for you, damn it. Did that convey sincerity? I hope it did. We are here for you, so much so that we're giving away a prize. We do this every week. It's a quarterly Flaviar membership. Flaviar, of course, is a premium spirits club. So every quarter you'll get a box. There'll be a big bottle of booze in that box. You'll get access to limited edition stuff and all kinds of things you can't get if you're not a Flaviar member. So here's how you can win tonight. Scotch is the spirit. We've covered this. See, there it is. I'm not lying. And, you know, Scotch, of course, comes from Scotland. Another great treasure that comes from Scotland is Willie the janitor from The Simpsons. Legend, national treasure. So besides Willie and the core Simpsons clan, Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, besides Willie and them, who are the 5 best supporting characters in The Simpsons history? I know you're probably thinking, there are so many supporting characters on The Simpsons. How could anyone definitively say who the 5 best are? Well, try me. That's what it is. That's your challenge. Put them down in the comments box. Fire them off. 5 best supporting Simpsons characters. At the end of this show, I may even consult our guests on this. We're going to pick a winner, and you will win a Flaviar membership. Try and contain the excitement. Let me have a sip of whiskey while we're doing this. Okay. Our first guest is a man of many talents. He's a stand-up comedian who's headlined all over the country back when that was allowed. He's an actor. You've seen him on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He's written for a bunch of shows, including Crashing on HBO, Wet Hot American Summer, First Day of Camp. Currently, he's dropping ice into his glass. And he currently hosts or regularly appears on like 17 different podcasts. He was recently had one with Bill Burr called Uninformed. And now he's got one. It's a hot show. It is a hot show. I listened to it today while I was out walking around, masked up. The show is called Without a Country. He co-hosts it with fellow comedian Corinne Fisher. Please give a warm NightCap live welcome to Mr. Joe DeRosa. Joe.
Hey, buddy.
I clap for you, man. I clap.
Thank you. I clap for myself usually, but it's in poor taste when people can see me do it. So.
What's going on over there? You look downright wintry. Is it cold in New York?
Oh, wintry. A wintry? Is that? I didn't. That's. Did you say wintry or wintry? Is wintry a word?
I don't know.
Or did you say wintry?
I don't know. Who are you and what are you talking about? I said wintry. Wintry.
Oh, wintry. Okay.
It's filtering through my Philadelphia accent.
No, it's not. No, it's actually in the 60s. It's nice over here, but I'm in the apartment. It's breezy. It felt like a good day for a little cap.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. In honor of the show, it's my nightcap.
See.
Sorry.
It's the kind. Well, go see Joe when you can. This is the kind of clever humor you come to expect at all his shows. So Joe, you're from Pennsylvania, right? You're from outside of Philly, correct?
Yeah, I was born in Philly, and I grew up in basically Norristown, Collegeville, King of Prussia, that area.
Yeah. Would you say that helps make you funny because Philly is so damn weird and strange and angry? Can you either go one of two ways? You become extremely violent, like an Eagles fan, or you're a funny person like yourself.
I think it's sort of like a lot of the people I know in Philly these days, and I can attribute this to part of why I am the way I am, is, I think it's a very like sort of blue collar but progressive city, So people are for gay marriage, but also for guns. So like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a nice mix. I support you, but don't come on my property kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a good a way to be. My favorite cities are all like that. Atlanta's like that, and Austin is like that. LA is not like that, but.
No. For someone like you, who is a road warrior,
I don't think I'm allowed back in LA after I just said pro guns. I think that's got me banned.
For someone like you, Joe, who you are a road warrior, you're a touring comedian.
Yeah.
Where's your head at now when you look out and think, okay, when does that get to happen again?
As much as I miss taking connecting flights to headline a bowling alley in Michigan, somehow I'm getting through this.
You are. You're strong.
No, I mean, look, man, this is obviously a tough time for everybody. By the way, how much longer do we have to say that for? How much longer does this have to go on before we're allowed to stop saying this is a tough time? You know what I mean? Like, I think once we hit the 2-month mark, it's almost like when you stop saying Happy New Year or Happy Holiday. You know what I mean? It's like it's got to cut off at some point. But it's it's hard. But I don't know. Like it's got its moments of bliss, the solitude and the not having to work and all that stuff, because I'm not able to. But of course, I can't imagine when. It's just so weird to live in a time where like you watch a sitcom and there's like a scene where a guy goes into another guy's office and like they shake hands and then sit down and then pick up things and hand each other things, and you're looking at it going, we literally can't do that. Like, that's very weird.
Oh, yeah.
So with that in mind, I can't imagine like when we're going to be able to pack into a low ceiling comedy venue, where, people are sometimes, I've been at shows where people have vomited. I mean, bodily fluids come out at these shows at times. I've seen people vomit.
I've been to one of your shows where someone vomited. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not because of me, believe it or not.
Well, it's good you still have your whittling, Joe. You still have your whittling. Because that's the thing. Being a whittler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much do
I had
you?
a show where a guy punched another guy in the face and he bled all over the floor.
Yeah, can't.
So you can't.
This is the tragedy. The tragedy of this whole thing, you can no longer punch anyone in the face without
No.
fear of getting their blood all over you. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. I want to ask you, Joe. How much do you know about Scotch? Because Scotch is what we're doing here today. How much would you say? Do you know the rules of Scotch?
I do. One, let it air out, one drop of water,
Well, I mean, in order to be called
all that stuff. Oh, no. No.
know.
I know very little. I've always been a bourbon man.
Okay.
I've never been a big Scotch guy. Scotch, this is kind of an early foray into Scotch for me tonight. In fact, I've got a bottle of single small batch Macallan back there that's never been opened.
Okay.
That a Macallan rep instructed me very wisely to not open. He was like, if you haven't opened it yet, do not open it.
Never.
Because you won't be able to buy a house with that in 10 years.
The basic things are this. You've got, it's got to be made in Scotland.
Yeah, that water, part I gathered.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Water, malted barley, some other cereal grains in there. It can't be distilled to more than 94.8% alcohol by volume. The sweet spot for you, Joe. And matured in oak casks, minimum of 3 years. You can't add any BS to it. And you got to bottle it at no less than 40% ABV. Those are the basics of all this. But sure. I really think in order to get into the nitty gritty, we should bring on our second guest. You are our first guest. We bring on that guest. What do you think, Joe?
Dan, it's your world, baby. I'm just living in it.
She is the trying not to laugh here because this
why?
Okay.
Why are you trying not to laugh?
Well, because they wanted me to make sure that I got the title right. So then my anti-authoritarian, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me have words.
Wintry. You're looking for the word wintry.
So I instinctively wintry say, no, I will not learn the title just because you're insisting that I do. So they said it once, and I'm going to try to remember it.
All right.
National single malt ambassador of some renown for the Bacardi single malt division of the Bacardi Company Scotch's single malts. I think I got it right. Holly Seidewand. Holly.
I wish everyone could see me laughing at you trying to attempt to get the title correct. Remember, I said I'm just Holly, so that's all. That's all that matters. But yes, many titles. So thanks for the introduction, Joe and Dan.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Holly.
You work with the single malts in Bacardi's portfolio, correct?
Yes. So Bacardi as a company owns 5 different single malt Scotch distilleries, obviously all based in Scotland, and they own Dewars as well. And this all happened at different time frames in the 1990s. So some people call me the Bacardi single malts North American ambassador. Sometimes it's the Dewar single malts. Sometimes it's just Aberfeldy. It's whatever mood you're in, whatever you want to call me. But my name is Holly, so that works too. There's not many Hollies in the Scotch world.
So one of the things, before we get into the specific Scotches themselves, Holly, I want to just ask you, for people out there, explain the difference between a single malt. Tell people what a single malt means, because I think there's some misconceptions out there.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, just to focus in generally, whiskey is the overarching category for all the things that you're drinking on your on these nightcaps. So whiskey is just something anywhere in the world, an alcohol that's been distilled from a grain. And then we can focus in. Bourbon would be a pillar underneath that umbrella. Scotch is a pillar as well, Japanese whiskey, Irish whiskey. So under Scotch, you have 3 main types of Scotch. You have single malt, blended Scotch, and blended malt Scotch. And single malt, which is the category that I focus on and specialize in, is actually the easiest to understand. So all of the rules that you listed has to be produced in Scotland, all of those ABVs you listed. But we are very restricted in what grains we can use. We have to be made out of 100% malted barley, so no other grains, which blended Scotch can utilize other grains, so can bourbon. And we have to come from one single distillery. So when you see that, that name on the bottle, everything has to come from that one distillery. So we're very tunnel vision on a certain distillery's flavor profile.
Okay. So the number, the age designation on the bottle then is the number of the youngest whiskey in that blend?
Yes. So, and that's one of the beautiful things about the Scotch category is, yes, we have a lot of rules, but that makes it very easily globally. We can go around to an airport, travel retail, any liquor store or bar, and we can look at a bottle. And if it says Scotch and there's an age on it, we know it's a marriage of lots of different casks. For single malt instance, lots of different casks from Royal Brackla, but the youngest cask was 12 years old in one day, minimum. So there could be 13, 14-year-old casks of whiskey in that marriage.
Joe, any questions so far?
Nope.
You're good. We do have some questions coming in. And again, I invite everybody out there watching. We've got some people.
I do have a question, actually.
You go.
Why do I always like bourbon better than anything else? Because my understanding of bourbon was always that it's just that it came from a certain region in Kentucky. But like champagne comes from a place in France. But why does it taste so different to me? Scotch has a very specific taste to me. Irish whiskey has a very specific taste to me. American whiskeys altogether taste different, but bourbon in particular, I don't really like rye. What is it? Why? What is that makes it differ from Scotch?
So bourbon, it has to be produced in America, so not just Kentucky. Some people think it's just Kentucky, but has to be produced in the United States. So there is a regionality to it, just like Scotch has to be from Scotland. And these are the two factors of why you probably lean that way. It has to be made out of at least 51% corn. Anything that's produced out of corn, and usually it's a little bit higher than 51%, and they'll have some other rye, wheat, or malted barley in there. But corn tends to lead towards a sweeter flavor profile, and you have to be aged in New Chard American oak to be called bourbon. And New Chard American oak gives you those big, bold vanilla, chocolate, caramel, toffee, honeyed, sweet flavors. So bourbon usually is just a little bit sweeter than some of the Irish whiskeys or Scotch whiskeys out there.
That's interesting because I don't know what's wrong with my palate, but when I drink bourbon, it tastes less sweet to me than Scotch. Scotch tastes, I think of butterscotch when I drink Scotch. I mean, not just because of the name, but to me, it has a more caramel flavor to it. But maybe that's just the wood.
See a doctor, ear, nose, and throat about that after this is all over. Clearly, your palate's out of whack, Joe. There's something going on in there, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just not, I guess it's the wood flavor, maybe. Maybe it's the oakiness of it. And
there's definitely sweetness in Scotch. I mean, there's sweetness in all of these. So you're getting some of those compounds from the grain and from the oak cask. So everyone's palate is different. So we'll give you a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
We got questions coming in from the audience here. Hillary wants to know, what am I drinking this? Well, this is the Royal Brackla. We're going to get to that in a second. Holly, somebody else, Josh Zager on Facebook said, does Dan wear the same shirt every time? Yes, I do. Law Girl T said, yay! Exclamation point, girl power.
Girl power, yes.
Put some respect on Holly's title. We did that, right? We respected. All right, so remember to get your entries in. 5 best supporting Simpsons characters of all time to win that Flaviar membership. Holly, can we get to the drinking of the Royal Brackla right now? Can we do that?
I'm going to pour myself some as well. So matching bottles. I know, Joe, you already have yours poured.
Yeah, I do.
So we'll pour us a little taste. And if anyone has the bottle at home too, and you probably noticed, Dan and Joe, it's a very fancy bottle, right? We want you to feel fancy while you drink it. It's quite heavy, tall. It has this nice champagne punt. I don't know if you noticed, you should feel like luxury when you drink it.
Joe, how much does that matter to you when you walk into a store? No, seriously, when you go in, Joe, and does the packaging, how much of a role do you think that plays on what you buy when you go into a store?
I mean, if it's something I've never had before, I would certainly be swayed a bit by packaging, but if I had to do a sort of guessing game of well, which of these will be quality and which of these won't, certainly something in a nicer package is going to influence my decision. But for the most part, I don't really care. I love I love Jack Daniels, and that it doesn't get more basic, and streamlined in packaging than that. But this is also very lovely. I feel like I could get. I feel like Holly, you were about to say, but it's affordable. Was that what you were getting towards with the
did you
fancy?
think I was going to that?
I thought you were. I don't know how much this costs. This was given to me for free.
Holly?
I mean, it really varies state by state. I actually don't know what it is on Flaviar. Usually in that maybe anywhere from $45 to $55 price point.
That's great because that's an amount I would spend, and I like that this looks like it costs more than that. So I feel like I could get one over.
Right,
on the
you bring
person I'm gifting it to.
You're the cool guy that spent a lot of money on your friends.
Yeah, it came in one of those tubes, and you go, look what I got over. They go, wow, what a guy.
Isn't he fancy? So tell us a little bit about the history of Royal Brackla.
Yeah, so the fancy bottle obviously is all of Scotch, has a nice classy element to it, but there's lots of different occasions to drink any sort of whiskey. You don't just have to be in a fancy mood for Scotch. But Royal Brackla is from the Highland region, so just east of Inverness, if anyone's been up to Scotland. So it's in the Northern Highlands. And it's actually one of the oldest distilleries in that region, so founded in 1812. And it was the first ever distillery to be granted a royal warrant. There were only 2 ever to be granted this royal warrant after us. And so it was a very big deal, as you can imagine. We were first granted it in 1835. And then it was renewed again by Queen Victoria. So it was literally marketed in the mid-1800s as the drink divine and the king's own whiskey. So we want you to feel like you're actually drinking this whiskey maybe in the palace with the queen. So a very famous whiskey for its time.
Fantastic.
All
So
right.
we want to do a jump in the nose on this thing. As always, I remind you, do not want to ram your nose into the glass. You certainly don't want to do that. You want to keep your mouth open a little bit, breathe it in. Talking to you, Joe. There you go.
Thank you.
Going?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, God, you guys have the right glasses and everything. I mean, look at me. I'm trash. I'm just a piece of trash over here.
I'm in New York with you. We're just drinking with what we have.
Where, I forgot we're online. I was almost like, where do you live? Sorry. Forgot.
So what are you getting on this one?
Me?
Yeah, what do you think, Joe?
Butterscotch?
An incredibly sweet, almost melted lollipop. No, I'm kidding. No, it's good. I like it. It's very smooth. Now, I put 1 ice cube in it because I was taught with single malt Scotch that you put either 1 ice cube in or a few drops of water. That's who by not to name drop, Patton Oswalt taught me that. And that's always how I've done it since, and it seems to work well with me. So it is smooth, perhaps a tiny bit smoother from the 1 piece of ice. But it's definitely got the oak flavor is there. It's got a slight smokiness, right? Am I saying the right stuff?
Do you get some fruit? Do you get some red fruits in there as well? That might be the sweetness you're tasting, because sweet can be lots of different things. But there's something that we do in the aging process that might get you some more of those sweet fruits. And it's okay if you don't.
Almost a plumish flavor.
Plumish, yeah. That's a red fruit.
It is? All right, great.
Yes. A nice purple, yeah.
It was
red
purple fruit. All right, well, whatever you say.
What is it you do? What is it you're doing in the process that's bringing out those fruit flavors?
So Royal Brackla, most distilleries in this Highland or Speyside region are not peated. So it actually doesn't have any smoke or medicinal campfire qualities like some of the islands. But some people still, with very sensitive and astute palates, might still get some of these, what we call wisps of smoke. And in Aberfeldy, we get it as well. Sometimes you just get that from the oak. you might get some of that flavor. But at Royal Brackla, we have quite tall stills. So our new make spirit is a little bit more of this fruity floral quality. So it's already a little bit sweeter off of the still. And then we age in a combination of ex-bourbon casks and Oloroso sherry casks. And usually those red fruits and some of those earthy, spicier notes come from the sherry casks. And some of the sweetness is definitely coming from those ex-bourbon casks, Joe, because you're getting some of that honeyed vanilla oak input from that as well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely a little vanilla-ish.
We got a question from Wolfhart on YouTube. Holly says, can there be some talk about cask strength scotches? I've had some really lovely ones.
Sure. So I mean, obviously you can legally bottle Scotch anything 40% alcohol by volume or above. If it's below, it's a spirit or basically a liqueur. So every distillery and master blender will choose to bottle things at where they think it tastes the best for them, but obviously it can be different for everyone. So a cask strength offering is usually coming from a single cask. So the master blender or head distiller chose out, a very exceptional cask or a few casks, out of a batch of casks that they really liked, and they wanted you to taste it as is right out of the barrel at natural cask strength. So if you see something at 40, 43, 46% alcohol by volume, we're taking all of that and then adding some water to get it down to that exact alcohol by volume. So it just offers you more experiences in the whiskey world of drinking, these different ABVs, because you'll get different flavors at different ABVs.
Okay.
Monique Coles on YouTube says, that's some badassery if I feel like a queen when I drink it. I was just thinking that myself. I just throw that out there. Holly, Nick Blandis wants to know, how did you get such a good gig?
Quit your real job and travel the world writing a whiskey blog for a year and hope it works out. That's basically how I.
Is that really how
I started down this road? Yeah.
What were you doing prior to this?
Before working on these single malts, I was actually the whiskey specialist for a small retail chain up in the Boston area. So I ran some whiskey programs, education programs, got to talk about global whiskey, and I like all whiskey from all over the world, but I do tend to lean towards anything that's made out of barley. So I am a single malt fan through and through. Sorry, Joe.
That's fine. I'll forgive it. This is very good, though. I'm not just saying that. It's very...
it's delicious.
It's good. Very tasty. I like Scotch in the way that I like wine. I like wine quite a bit, and I like red wine, but I like them in similar ways where, it's for a few, maybe two glasses before dinner or maybe even after dinner or whatever. But if it's a long night, that's when I'm like, give me the Maker's Mark or something. You know what I mean? Like,
go for it.
Scotch feels like a special occasion thing for you.
Yeah, it's something to be, not even special occasion, but just something to, it's something to be a little more savored. It has a little more of a mealish quality to it. I mean, if you were bar hopping, you wouldn't drink wine. You know what I mean? You enjoy 2 glasses of wine and then you move on,
Can we raise a glass to the days when you used to be able to go bar hopping?
I finished mine already. Should I pour more? Hold on.
Well, you know what? Let's do this, Joe. That's a good way. That's a good way for the transition. And you finished the Royal Brackla. We're going to move on now to the Aberfeldy 12, right?
But you guys didn't finish yours yet, though.
Well,
we're working on it. I'm glad everyone liked it. The Royal Brackla is quite obscure. It definitely was for connoisseurs of whiskey for a very long time, and it's just finally getting out more into the mainstream. So everyone that's tasting it tonight is, I hope you enjoyed it. It might be your first time trying it, so this is quite a treat. So,
Ian Maxwell from YouTube said, what will be the best one for those who enjoy vanilla? I think there's a good amount of vanilla flavor in this one. Also, where does Royal Brackla fall in? Martin Draper is asking, where does it fall in the peaty side? This is character. this is definitely not a peaty Scotch. Yeah.
No, it's not from Islay, which is where you typically will get your Lafroigs. Well, you will get your Lafroigs, Lagavulin, Ardbegs, typically very smoky. I mean, you can peat any whiskey from anywhere in Scotland, but Royal Brackla through and through is an unpeated malt. It's known to have more of those grassy, vanilla, fruit qualities to it.
So go ahead, Joe.
It's funny when I said you guys didn't finish yours yet. I saw the difference in the way you and Holly drink. And Dan, you and I drink similarly. I go, you didn't finish yours yet, and you went like this. Well, and Holly went, we're working on it. I was like, oh, I drink the way Dan drinks.
Scotch is an onion, right? You have to unravel it a little bit. It's a little.
See what I mean? That's what I was saying. It's
So Aberfeldy, one of my favorites. I really do love this brand. Right. So tell us about the history of Aberfeldy, Holly.
Yeah, so Aberfeldy, and we'll have Gabe on in a little bit. I know you'll introduce him. Hopefully, I didn't steal your thunder, Dan. But Gabe will be able. You can come up with a new title and a new name. But Aberfeldy is one of our other single malts. So it's actually from the same region as Royal Brackla, this Highland region. There's 5 different Scotch whiskey regions that the Scotch Whisky Association has designated to help us understand flavor profiles and is it peated or more floral or fruity. And so this Highland region where Royal Brackla and Aberfeldy live is known to be a little bit heavier, a little bit maltier, but still have some of those sweet fruit spice qualities to it. And Joe, I think you're really going to like this one because Aberfeldy's known to trick the bourbon drinker.
Oh. Okay.
So obviously we can't be as sweet. We're not corn and new charred oak. We're again still barley and aging in those ex-bourbon and Oloroso sherry casks. But Aberfeldy is known as the golden dram. So it has these very rich honeyed notes, especially up front. For me on the nose, I get them quite astute. And then you get more of these kind of chocolate, cinnamon, more of a gritty quality on the finish. So definitely
that's very nice.
Different.
That's very nice. Well, there's a lot more going on with this one, I feel like.
Look at his face. He's still thinking about it.
No, it's very good. It's much fuller. It's much more robust. Mm-hmm. And it starts very different than it finishes. I felt like, I feel so like such an expert the way with the language I'm using. The Brackla.
He's Googling this.
No, I'm not.
It was like, I think it's saddle leather.
I have a whiskey experts right over here. Brackla. The Brackla was I felt like a very consistent flavor and experience. This from sip to swallow to after I felt like I got 3 different. Hold on, let me. You look
happy, and while you're taking that sip, I think now would be a good time to bring on yet another expert. And he is let me think what he is. He is the national, and by national I mean this, America. He's the national American, national ambassador of Dewar's. Go right, getting it right. National ambassador for Dewars and reigning supermodel of the Scotch world, male supermodel of the Scotch world. I don't know if people knew this or not. My good friend Gabe Cardarella. How are you, buddy?
Oh, what's up, Dan? Dan, you were close, man. You're really close this time. But I think now that I've had the opportunity to meet Joe, in the future you can introduce me as whiskey ambassador to the stars. There you go. That's you. But you are the national ambassador for Dewars. Yeah, I look after North America for the Dewars portfolio. You know, like Holly, we've got a big portfolio of whiskey to take around the world with us and share with great folks like yourself and Joe.
Nice.
So what, Gabe?
I thought we froze.
Wait, we froze again. Okay. See you later. So, Gabe, what are your thoughts on the Aberfeldy? I want to talk a little bit about how Aberfeldy and Dewars meet. What's the connection?
I mean, it's such an important one to us, honestly. For Bacardi, it's a single malt whiskey that was the only distillery built by the Dewar family. So from a history perspective, it really plays an important role, not only from a flavor profile, which I'll get into, but from the historical sense that when you're drinking Aberfeldy, in essence, you're drinking a bit of Dewar's, because the characteristics that you find in Aberfeldy are really the principal characteristics that you're going to find in Dewar's 15. So when we try that, Joe, I would say for you, try to see if you can recognize some of that on the nose and on the palate. The funny thing about nosing and tasting whiskey is, one of my mentors would say that the nose is for knowledge and the palate's for pleasure. So when you're nosing whiskey, that's kind of your opportunity to discover what a distillery or a distiller or a blender is trying to tell you about their whiskey without them sitting with you. But from Aberfeldy's perspective, it really is one that's super important. You look at some of the packs, even when you look at Dewar's 15, you'll notice all the gold that's all over the label. And Aberfeldy, Holly will tell you, it's referred to as the golden dram. Historically, this is a place where people used to pan for gold. And we decided to build a distillery here that would really become an integral part in every whiskey that we launched in the blended house. So that whiskey that is very honeyed and vanilla forward is really going to bring forward that kind of first nose and last thing leaving you within the Dewar's house. So it's so important, not only because of from a production value is built by Dewar's, but it's really from a component of Dewar's, which is a blend of up to 40 different whiskeys. So we're using whiskeys from all over Scotland. There's about 133 operating distilleries. So we're pulling from all these amazing distilleries, Brackla and Aberfeldy playing a large share of the malts within it, really imparting a big character. So ever since we built that distillery in the late 1800s, it really played a huge role in every liquid we launched since then.
And the flavors on this, we talk about, let's talk about a little bit what goes into this. What about the water source? How important is the water for making, when you're making whiskey?
So for me, there's like a lot of romance with whiskey. When you're talking about a brand like Dewar's or you're talking about a brand like Aberfeldy, you're talking about much more than just liquid in a bottle. I would always tell people that good whiskey becomes great when you're sharing it with good people over good stories. And each one of these whiskeys just has these incredible stories. So with the Aberfeldy water source, I'd love to leave it to Holly, but this is a place where they used to pan for gold. People used to try to stake their claim and riches here. That's really amazing and unique. From a enjoyment perspective or discovery, Joe, maybe this is a nice tip for you. You were talking about how one of your friends taught you about the importance of water to whiskey. A lot of folks in the whiskey world would say that water is to whiskey what air is to wine. Water just kind of gives you the opportunity to open it up and let it blossom and bloom a bit. Right. So and the amount of water you add is up to you. Our master blender, Stephanie, she will always add water and dilute it a bit when she's understanding the balance and complexity of the whiskeys that she looks after. That's our malts and our blended house. But from an enjoyment perspective, if it's water, add it. If it's ice, add it. If it's soda, a highball, there are no rules when it comes to enjoyment. But really, to understand a whiskey, start neat. Add a little bit of water and let that whiskey open up.
That's interesting, because I only, saying I'm a big bourbon drinker, I've only ever drank bourbon on the rocks. I don't like it neat, because I find that it burns too much.
A little harsh.
So I wonder if my slight hiccup with Scotch has always been that I've never had it on ice, because everybody's always been like, you don't put ice in that.
Sure.
A guy. Do you guys rep Johnny Walker at all?
Well,
no, right?
But when you look at Joe,
I can speak freely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Somebody gave me a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue once, and he's like, "You don't put that in ice." And I was like, "Really?" Because it tastes like shit.
Oh,
we paid. He was like,
at the end of the day, I would say
we were talking about this earlier, Dan. If it's a hot day and you want whiskey, you can drink it whenever. Drink it on the rocks. Drink it in a highball. I think the Scotch category has, for many decades told people how to drink it, and you don't get to tell people what to do, as we've learned over the years. And that water source, Dan, not only add it as you see fit, but at Aberfeldy, the Patilly Burn is where we pull our water from. It runs right alongside the distillery. And when you look at where distilleries are cropped up anywhere in the world, but specifically on that small portion of the United Kingdom, right in Scotland, it's all with a major water source, because you need water for all of your production capabilities. You need it to lower, to put into the cask with the new make spirit. You need to be able to proof down when you bottle. You need a lot of water. So you see the River Spey and all of these different burns, you have to be up against some sort of extreme water source. And so for Aberfeldy, we run off of the Patilly burn, and that's where, as Gabe said, it's known as the Golden Dram because it's honeyed. Honey is gold, and it's said that there's gold to be found in those waters. So it is quite a magical place to go and enjoy the Golden Dram, the Aberfeldy.
When we talk about how to enjoy these things, first, we didn't do this with Royal Brackla, but what would you make? What kind of a cocktail? You're going to make one cocktail with the Aberfeldy. What would you make?
So our signature cocktail is the honeyed old fashioned, right? So just swap out that sugar and get some local New York State honey at Union Square Market, or, you know, go find a local apiary. We're all trying to save ourselves now from the killer bees. So go support some other bees that might need some love and support, but get some honey and play around. Different honeys will provide different flavors. So you can do spin-offs of that, honeyed highballs. My favorite is
Wait, did we go back to that old fashioned? So just honey, bitters, and the Scotch.
Yeah, it's basically right. And you know, you can garnish it with whatever you want. And it's beautiful. It's great for the summertime, and hot toddies in the summer. Flip that on its head, right? Do an iced toddy. Get some of that honey, lemon juice. Put it on the rocks.
I like that.
Tea.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Well, shit. This
just blew your mind, Joe.
It's a whole new leaf.
Marie Fitzpatrick on Facebook just chimed in and said, when I first started drinking whiskeys, I was told women don't drink whiskey. And then she has a smiley face there. And it's an interesting thing, though, because really women have come to it was that line of thinking for a long time, like men drink, but there are so many women distillers and blenders now, and just like really kind of taking hold of the industry.
And women have always.
I think that's a really interesting point. Like, look at Dewar's though. Like, you know, what's amazing about Dewar's, a lot of people don't realize this brand's been around in the United States since 1899. We have had 7 master blenders since 1846, and currently at the helm of Dewar's is our first female master blender. Stephanie McLeod's been looking after Dewar's for a number of years, and the whiskey that we're featuring today from Dewar's is her first addition to the company. Now, I think people often look at Scotch as kind of a bit of a stuffy category. You know, Joe, you're talking about how there's some rules, and a lot of time folks often think of, you know, folks in leather chairs after a golf match sitting by a fireplace, and you're only allowed to add water. You're not supposed to smile when you drink it. But the truth is, at Dewar's, you know, we take making whiskey very seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. You know, and the way that we produce our whiskey is special to us, and we do not cut corners no matter the time and expense. But at the end of the day, we are talking about whiskey. It's something you're meant to enjoy. And Stephanie is currently the guardian for that profile.
Holly, did you run up against that? Because you talk about when you were writing the blog. I mean, was there ever that back in the day? Like, oh, you're drinking whiskey?
You know, I never really felt that way. It's, as Gabe had said too, we have so many females on the production side, the blending side. You know, once you really start to, you know, peel away the layers of the industry, you know, it's a pretty much 50-50 split. I think it's just this misconception that we've still carried along that, you know, it's a man's drink. But really, once you dive into it, it's pretty well balanced. So please, females and women, go out and ask for a whiskey. Just ask for it. It smells and tastes great. We all love perfume and hairspray and whatever. Go smell it. That's the best part of whiskey is smelling all of the different styles. So I think it's just a misconception that we're still working towards, or away from. But I really don't feel it in the industry by any means.
Dan loves hairspray too, though. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Just to remind everybody, we got about 10 more minutes to get in those answers. The 5 best supporting Simpsons characters of all time, not including Willie the janitor or the core Homer, Marge, Bart, Maggie, and Lisa. Get those in. You're going to win that Flaviar membership. We're going to vote on it. Are you guys all Simpsons fans?
I don't watch, no.
All right, then I'll make the decision.
I'm not. None of my interests are on the show tonight. No, I'm kidding.
Let's. It's game time.
Blended.
You ready for this, man?
Wait, I gotta finish. Hold on.
Joe, I'm really actually excited for you to guzzle this one too.
There it goes.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Joe, you're talking about to me, as Holly said, it's kind of like it can trick you. You talked about Johnny Walker earlier, which is fine whiskey, and there's many of fine blended whiskeys, and that's why if you go all over the world and you were to find yourself drinking a number of whiskeys, you'd find eventually that people had their own house style. Whereas Johnny Walker has a lot of these single malts that tend to be more this peated smoke, where you find more this medicinal smoke at the backbone of it. And Dewar's house style, the reason that we're following Aberfeldy is because, as I mentioned earlier and Holly mentioned, is greatly influenced by Aberfeldy, which has a really long fermentation time, which allows it to be sweeter, really tall stills, using a lot of ex-bourbon barrels. That is because we want to perpetuate blended whiskey that really bridges the gap. You know what I mean? So I think if you were to really find yourself, introducing to Dewar's, not only, are you introduced with this whiskey, a 15-year-old whiskey, which means it has at minimum a 15-year-old whiskey in it that's been aged for at least 15 years. You've got whiskey that's way older than that, but we're also trying to strive for a character at Dewar's that has more of this honeyed characteristic, this vanilla characteristic, the things that you love about bourbon with this little touch of smoke, not an overwhelming backbone. But really what we're striving for is how can we produce something that has great value too, right? Mm-hmm. On Flaviar, this is $41. Around the world, it's around $40. And our 12-year-old whiskey is just under that. It's for us is about how can we get this in more people's hands to really show folks that having whiskey with a minimum age statement doesn't have to, empty your pocket, but also can have a lot of the character whiskeys you already love. And the truth is, if you study just one wine, if you drank just one wine, you'd be missing out on a lot of great wines. And this is kind of where whiskey sits in the world, I think.
Yeah, it's I like one of the reasons I like whiskey is for one of the reasons I also like wine, and one of the reasons I also like tequila is because there's such a universe to it and a variety that you can spend $35 or $40, get a really great bottle of something. And it's like absolutely you don't have to break the bank.
You don't. And a lot of whiskeys, at this price, a lot of whiskeys are at 15 years are generally, they're north of $45 to $50. And in this case, you can access a 15-year-old whiskey that's 40. And for us, Dan, to talk more about the production of blends, Joe, for single malt whiskeys, single malt meaning you focusing on one distillery, right? So it's a blend of whiskeys from one place. Whereas the Dewar's portfolio of blended Scotch is using a combination of whiskeys from all over Scotland. Now, one thing that we do to make Dewar's a bit more kind of balanced is a process that we pioneered called double aging. So we don't just bottle our liquid after blending it. We actually let it rest in exhausted casks or barrels, which allow that whiskey, older whiskeys that are much older than 15 years, and the 15-year-old benchmark to level and balance out. And this makes something really, really balanced and unique. There's no point of blending up to 40 different whiskeys at multiple ages if one overwhelms the other with maybe too much smoke or too sweet. For us, there's a lot of great whiskey writers out there. I mean, Dan, you're familiar with our good friend Mark Gillespie. Mark would, he says great things about this whiskey, talking about how this raises the standard for what blended whiskeys are. Whiskey Advocate giving it 90 points. So Dewar's is kind of one of those brands that I always say when I go to bars or I meet people for the first time, I'm like, I just want you to try it first, and then we'll talk about it.
I like it.
One of the things I do or did, and hopefully we'll do again, is MC this event called the Whiskey X. And Gabe would always be there. With be about 50, 60 whiskeys. We do these all over the country. You get 1,500 people in there. And I can tell you, the Dewar's, there was always a big line, man. There's always certain brands when you're in there and you go, oh, and the ones that were, because what ends up happening is people go around, they try, they get, they do that first round, and then they figure out what their favorites are, and then that's where the lines go. And Dewar's would always have a big line. And I think it's what you said, Gabe. It's that it's really approachable, and people do want to hear. Like Joe mentioned this earlier about going to a party. You show up and you go, hey, I brought I brought a 15-year. And everyone's like, whoa, look at this guy.
Exactly, man. Yeah.
Not only is it's $40, You look baller for bringing it, and it tastes good.
That's what it's all about. It's about making good whiskey.
You don't feel bad if people take it back as a shot by accident, right? You have to balance what kind of party you're going to. You don't want to bring the $120 and potentially back as a shooter. So you kind of you gauge which party you're going to.
And Joe, just because I'm a little starstruck here, I gotta ask you, man, what do you think?
You need to find better stars.
Look, man, I don't watch somebody play a crooked veterinarian than you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I like it. I really do. The difference between these, it is similar to the Aberfeldy. It's different than the Brackla. I keep forgetting the name of that. They have similar flavors, but the difference I'm noticing, and this is my amateur opinion, is the Aberfeldy went down with I got a slight peatiness going in, and then I got like a burst of fruit on the finish. Once I swallowed, I felt like I got like almost like a fruit vapor coming back at me, which was really nice. That's cool. Which was great, but I also like this because this almost is just a straight, this felt like a crescendoing peatiness to me, which I liked. I felt like it went in and got a little peatier as it went along through the swallow, and I like it. I think it would just depend on what kind of mood I'm in, you know. But I like it. Does that sound? Am I describing it accurately?
Yeah, that's good.
When
man.
you get
no,
these,
seriously, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you know, does that sound
no right or wrong, Joe? There is no right or wrong. I mean, obviously, you know, our company definitely wants people to enjoy whiskey at the end of the day, you know, and if it's something that you enjoy, then our job is really what that's about. And at the end of the day, when it comes to tasting notes, you know, I can sit here and tell you what I think you should get, but it's personal. You know, if you look at writers like Dave Broom and, you know, Charlie McLean, you know, Dave Broom will tell you to close your eyes and tell you to think of a season, you know, and then if you ask Charlie McLean, he'll be like, I don't know, what 66 Mustang Fastback or Cutlass do you find yourself sitting in? It's really up to you.
I like that you said season. This to me is October, fall. Aberfeldy to me was summer.
Summer, okay.
Very good.
Yeah, because when you said the thing about the cold, whatever the hell it was, the honey whiskey cold.
You wanted the
cold toddy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. This would be very refreshing in the sun if I drank it that way. This to me makes me think of fall, orange leaves, campfire, you know, which is great.
It's a great whiskey to drink a number of ways. You know, personally, when I drink a lot of our whiskeys, this generally happens to fall within our Dewar's 12 year and our Dewar's white label. I'm a highball kind of guy. I love a tall glass loaded with ice, Dewar's 12 year or white label topped with soda, orange or lemon peel. You know, it's almost like this really refreshing, dare I say, light beer version of a whiskey cocktail. So, you know, they really have this application that applies to the way you drink all your spirits. And you mentioned you like tequila, too. You know, the interesting thing about Scotch is we're relaxing the laws in Scotch a bit more. And we've just launched the world's first blended whiskey we're using from our friends illegal mezcal casks. So it's fun.
That's interesting because so there's a club here in New York called The Stand, and it's my favorite club to perform at in the city here. I actually have, if you guys are in New York, you should come out if the world ever reopens. But they actually have whiskey barrels at The Stand that they branded for different performers. I have my own barrel there. It's got, I believe it's an old fashioned or a Manhattan. I can't remember what's in it right now because they did it right before they closed. That's aging. Supposed to age for 6 weeks. It's going to age a lot longer than that now. But anyway, so that's there.
Your benefit.
Yeah, so that's there. So I was going to say, come down and we'll all have some. But also, they've got a mezcal there the exact opposite that was aged in whiskey barrels. That's really interesting. A really tremendous whiskey
I love
selection.
The Stand. They carry all of our products there. That's a hidden gem. I love stand-up comedy, and I like to drink a really nice whiskey while I'm laughing. So it's not many comedy cellars or clubs you get that choice. So
they have a great selection. That's where I know the McKellen rep from. But but more on the Dewars. It's interesting because once you started talking about the different ways to drink it, the versatility of the flavor of it became more apparent to me. Because, again, I'm getting a sort of smokiness from it, and I feel like leaning into that would be nice. But I also so my first thought was, oh, this with a nice quality cigarette or cigar would probably taste really good. And then when you started talking about versatility, I was like, well, if you mash this up against something more orange or fruit flavored in a mixture, it would also be very nice. So I like it. I really like it a lot.
He's becoming an expert right in front of our eyes. We got a question. I'm going to throw this one to Joe. Forget Gabe and Holly here. So Richard Abbott writes in and says, I enjoy a little bit of peat on the back end, on the finish, but I really don't care for it in my face. Which of these being discussed tonight would best suit my palate? Go, Joe DeRosa. Tell Richard Abbott which one he needs to get.
That was so loaded. Everything you just said. I'm not going to touch any of it.
There's no wrong answer, actually.
No, it's just,
you missed the part.
I don't like peat on the back end. I don't like peat.
Yeah, all right. We'll jump right over that. Let's go on to Ryan.
Leave Pete out of this. Listen, no. Which one of these? I would say. I think the Aberfeldy was the one that had some peatiness to it, but not the least amount of peatiness to it. I would say that this wasn't an incredible amount of peatiness. The Dewars was not an incredible amount of peatiness in front, but it did have a nice kick of it in the back end. So I don't know.
I think you're right.
No. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
Jesse Grimaldi says, what is the name of this finished in mezcal barrels?
It's called Illegal Smooth.
Illegal Smooth.
It's the second release of our finish line. We have a rum cast finish called Caribbean Smooth, and then we've got our latest launch, which just is now hitting the market, called Illegal Smooth. Again, using casks from our friends at Illegal.
Can I get your info after the show, because I want to try? I'm dead serious. I want to try some of that.
You got it, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we've come to the big moment here where we get to give out the Flaviar membership for the prize. And again, the question was the 5 best Simpsons supporting characters of all time, as determined. I use a very scientific method to come up with this. So, Joe, you do not watch The Simpsons. Holly?
I'm sorry, I do not.
Gabe?
Oh,
look, man, I was raised on this show.
Okay, so Gabe and I will be the arbiters of this thing here. So here's what we got so far. I'll just blow through a couple, and of course we know what the answer is, Gabe. Right? We know the 5 best. You and I, of the hundreds of Simpsons characters. So Law Girl T said Troy McClure. Oh,
that's a good one.
All right,
pretty good one.
I'm going to throw this out right now. I should have said it ahead of time. I was going to say that Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz were not going to be included either. They were both voiced by the late, great Phil Hartman, comedian Phil Hartman, who died, and Matt Groening retired those characters from The Simpsons when Phil Hartman died, said they will never appear again. I probably should have, whatever.
Making rules on the fly, Dan?
I can make up, hey, my show. My rules. Okay. Barney, good one. Chief Wiggum, comic book guy. Man, that's a good one. Kevin Eachs.
I don't know that one.
Hold on, let me a little more whiskey and then try to pronounce that again. Kevin Ishe says Milhouse, Krusty the Clown, Barney, Lenny, and Flanders. Pretty good, but no. Flanders, Frank Colicchio, Flanders, Ralph Wiggum. See, there's a vague one there.
Ralph's good.
Chief Wiggum, right? There's Chief Wiggum.
There better be an Auto Man in here somewhere, otherwise I'm out.
And then nobody has said Mo yet.
Yeah, or
Barney
Gumble.
Lorenzo Sanchez says Mr. Burns. First of all, I'm going to say this right now. Mr. Burns is not on your list. You're not winning. Mr. Burns, to me, was the one shoo-in. What would you say, Gabe? Mr. Burns has to be.
He's got to be in there.
So Mr. Burns,
integral part of the show.
Mo,
All right,
Principal Skinner, Flanders, and Krusty the Clown. I'm going to say right now, Lorenzo Sanchez is in the lead. Okay. Monique,
we haven't heard of Sideshow Bob yet either.
Haven't had a side. What is going on? Monique Cole says Itchy, Scratchy, Apu,
Oh, they're good.
and Ned Flanders. All right. I don't think we can go Apu because it's no longer acceptable. All right. Tom Shulo, Lionel Hunt. All right, you're out. It's Lionel Hutz. If you misspell Lionel Hutz, you're out. I'm sorry, Tim said his name wrong. We got Barney, Abu, Krusty, Troy. All right, Jen and Aaron. I'm going down. I'm moving. Does anybody remember me saying that Groundskeeper Willie was not? You couldn't include Groundskeeper Willie. Come on, Gary Danby. Try to keep up.
I'm a little jealous of Holly right now. She can watch years upon years of a show she's never seen for as long as she wants.
I told you that I did Google that they only have 4 fingers. That's all I know about the Simpsons now. They're yellow and they have 4 fingers.
All right, this is what I'm going to do right now because I want to talk to you guys for a second. Producer Keith, if you hear me now, I'm going to tell you who my 5 are, and if you could just go through those and tell me who came closest to my 5. Mr. Burns, Ralph Wiggum, Krusty the Clown, Principal Skinner, and Mo Sislak. That's my 5. Mr. Burns, Ralph Wiggum, Krusty, Principal Skinner, Mo Sislak. Also acceptable answers, Edna Crabapple, Ned Flanders, Chief Wiggum, and Comic Book Guy. So, Keith, if you can just go through and shoot me the one who came closest to that. Joe's disgusted now. He's disgusted. Just send me the one that comes closest to that, and that'll be the winner. We'll announce that in a second. So in the meantime, I wanna get back to you guys real quick. So, Joe, would you say now, after what we've done here, after what has happened here, what's transpired tonight, that you have been converted to Scotch?
I've been what? I'm sorry?
Have you been converted to Scotch? Would you now say you're a bigger Scotch fan than you were when we started?
Yeah. I appreciated it before we started, but I do feel like I've learned quite a bit in this short hour. So yeah, I look forward to drinking all of these bottles tonight.
By the way, I'll be getting a report from Joe later in the evening. He'll be texting me 3 hours from now, and we'll be talking about how much we like the Scotch. So one other question for you, Gabe. What would you make with the Dewar's 15? You're going to make a cocktail.
Look, the beautiful thing about that whiskey is being that it is, $41, you can really feel safe messing around with that whiskey. So I am, very simple when it comes to my cocktails. I really think bartenders are doing some incredible things with cocktails, and I can't wait to get back to bars. I'm in Cincinnati. I've got a few favorite bars here, 2 of them being Longfellow and Homemakers that make great cocktails with our whiskeys all the time. But, penicillin's always been near and dear to me, as it's kind of the modern classic for whiskeys and especially Scotch. With the 15-year, I don't mess with it a whole lot, man. Like, I like a large ice cube with it, or just a couple shaved ice cubes even. I like a chilled 15-year-old because that peat kind of comes down, but while it's still on the backbone, you get more of that sweet notes that Joe was bringing up earlier. I just really think, for me, that's where it sits. But it's personal. It's just so personal.
Okay. Well, Joe, excuse you.
Sorry.
It's a very exciting time. We have the winner of the Flaviar membership, this week's winner. Oh, and by the way, Kevin Ishe has written in and said it's pronounced peaches. Oh, so it's Kevin Eaches. All right. Everybody's good with that? You run into him, it's Eaches. Like
okay.
Peach. All right.
It's that all the time.
The winner of, can we get a drum roll? Lorenzo Sanchez is the winner with the entries Mr. Burns, Mo, Principal Skinner, Ned Flanders, and Krusty the Clown. Lorenzo Sanchez, you have won a Flaviar membership. Congratulations for being so smart like me. And I guess we've gotten to the portion that I hate, where you have to say goodbye. First off, Joe, I want to ask you, I would say this is the time where you promote stuff that you're doing, but clearly you're not doing anything, right?
Well, we're still doing Without a Country, Corinne Fisher and I.
It's a great podcast. It really is. Check it out.
Thank you. Check it out on Gas Digital as the network. There's a YouTube channel. You can subscribe to us. You can download it and listen to it wherever you get your podcast from. And every week we take 4 controversial news stories and we cover them from the hardest left-leaning and right-leaning outlets and try to find the middle ground in between the two. So I think it's a podcast that can be useful to certain people right now within this crazed media landscape. So it's fun.
We're divided, Joe? Are you suggesting crazily that we're divided?
How could I?
So Without a Country, available everywhere podcasts stream. And where can the people find you on the social medias?
Joe DeRosa comedian on Facebook, Joe DeRosa comedy on Twitter and Instagram. Okay. Not really doing much on TikTok yet.
Later tonight, a little more Dewars, me and you, buddy. We're gonna
don't leave me out of that, Dan.
Gabe Cardarella, where can people find you on social media?
Well, as cheesy it may sound, Whiskey Behavior, whiskey without the E, of course, on Instagram. But yeah, Joe, awesome having a drink with you, man. Really pleasure to meet you. Dan, love you, brother. Always nice hanging out with you. And same to you, Holly. Love having a drink with you.
And Holly, what about you? Where can they find you on the social media?
I am at Her Whiskey Love. Again, no E in whiskey. We don't use the E in whiskey for Scotch, so that's why Gabe and I both drop it. But Her Whiskey Love on Instagram.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Great meeting you, Holly.
Yeah, great to meet you, Joe. Thanks for trying.
It's fun. I'll follow you guys both after this.
Likewise.
Beautiful. And thanks, Dan. I want to thank everybody out in the audience for joining us tonight. I know you've got 7 million people on Instagram Live that you could be watching right now, but you chose to spend some time with us. And I want to thank you for that. Of course, thanks to Holly and Gabe and Joe. Remember, all of these whiskeys that we have, you can buy them on Caskers. You can rewatch this broadcast on Flaviar's YouTube channel. Again, check out my podcast, What We're Drinking with Dan Dunn. Follow me at The Imbiber. Next week, next Thursday, right here, same time, same bat channel, Bacardi, Santa Teresa, and Banks. And I'm going to be chatting up former NBA star Glenn Big Baby Davis. That's right. Big Baby talking to a big baby. So hopefully I'll see you all next week. And thanks again for joining us.